Hey everybody, so welcome to the last tutorial in the series that walks us through how to create events, then test those events within the Soundcaster window, and ultimately we create sound banks that export directly to the game. These sound banks need to contain all the information in our interactive music structure and hierarchy so that our game can play those structures. So it needs to contain states, and it needs to contain the definition for how our playlists and switches interact, and our communication is through our game syncs, which are the states itself. So here are the game syncs that I've set up, which is player state, and then these triggers down here called the stingers. Now, we've also created some events. Unity can also call these events directly once we've exported that sound bank and brought it over into Unity. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and create one of these sound banks. We are going to choose a new layout for this. So we'll go up to Layouts. There's a sound bank layout. And this is really useful in terms of this is what we're going to be working for this video. We're going to be working primarily in the sound bank layout to create a new sound bank. So we go over here, we right click on new default work unit, new child. We're going to create a sound bank. And a lot of people categorize them by level in the game, like level 1, level 2. You could also categorize them as music or sound effects for each level. That's really up to you and your game development team. We're going to call this level 1 music. Okay, and nothing's in that sound bank yet, but if I open it up, you can see that I have one sound bank in our game. And you can see over here the platforms and languages. I only have Windows here and I only have English here, but if I'm doing a larger game, I'll want more. I'll have to select the platform itself. Now, when Wwise ships their educational license or their indie license, which allows up to 200 assets, you can only develop for certain platforms, and that includes Windows and Mac primarily. And so we can create sound banks for each one of those platforms, but we can create sound banks for other devices, including Xbox One and PlayStation 4, if we have a separate license from Audiokinetic with their Wwise platform. So because right now I'm in a Mac, I wanted to show you guys, well, where are my other platforms? How can I get to my Mac and things like that? That's the first step, is after we create our sound bank, make sure that you're developing for the right platform. So if you're going to be running Unity on Windows and importing the sound bank into Unity on Windows, then make sure to have the Windows here. But if you don't see it here, you don't see the platform that you want, you go up to the Project menu, then you can go up down to the Platform Manager. And in the Platform Manager, you can see that I have Windows here. I'm going to go ahead and add something else. I'm going to add in one of these other platforms. These are all the platforms that Audiokinetic and Wwise support. So I'm going to go ahead and select Mac, and I can leave the settings all set and straight. I'll hit OK, and it basically says, are you making sure you can't undo this? So I want to make sure that I do this, and then it's got to reload everything. Once it reloads, then you're going to see when I go to the sound banks, once I go to the sound bank layout, I'm going to see Mac and Windows, English. Languages is for localization, so a lot of AAA games, really big games, actually port to multiple languages, and that's called localization. So they'll have an English version, they'll have a French version, a Spanish version, Chinese version, etc. So let's go ahead and learn about how do we add things into this sound bank that we are exporting. In fact, you know what? I'm going to rename my sound bank that I created. I think I can rename it here. Let's see. I'm going to rename it. Edit. Let's see. Where's the rename function? Because I wanted to add Soundbank after it, so I could change that. Rename. Sorry, it took me so long. But rename, and I'm going to put Soundbank after it, just so that we have a reference point for where and what it is that we're doing. Now, once I have that sound bank up, what I can do is go over to my Events tab, and I can drag in all the events that I need for my game that I've created. Now, if you have a big game, you'll have level 1 events and level 2 events and level 3 events, and you're going to drag them into the sound bank that corresponds to that level. In this one, I only have events set up for my single level, so it's no big deal. I can just drag everything in at once. Now, how do we actually generate the sound bank? We can go up here, select default work unit, and it will select all the sound banks. You have to pick out what platforms you want. So I'm going to pick both Mac and Windows, and then I'm going to choose English. So everything's all set up, and I just hit the generate button. That's going to go through and generate all those sound banks based on the settings that I've set up. Now, I'm not going to go over how to set up the actual compression settings for each one of the platforms in this video. We're just basically going to look to how to create this sound bank editor, and that's basically the end. Now, if I go over to my desktop, and what I can do is look in my Wwise project folder here, you can see that I have a Soundbanks folder. My Soundbanks don't appear here though. That's kind of the almost the reference to how my Soundbanks are sort of set up. My Soundbanks are actually in generated Soundbanks, and if I look inside there, I can see my two platforms, Windows and Mac, and this is the data that I would give to my game developer if they were implementing my music into their game. So I drag these over and or sometimes I might give them the entire Wwise project itself, but in this case, most of the time I'm going to deliver them the generated sound banks. And you can see that there is a sound bank itself, and that's the big one, that's 25 megabytes right now. Then there's also a text file. If I load that text file into a text editor, let's see what I'm loading it here, it gives all this information about what's actually in the sound bank itself. So, for instance, these are all the events. That's kind of the data that the programmer needs to know. Oh yeah, there's a start game event, there's set state to a fight, there's all these triggers that I have, things like that. So there's a little bit of information that the programmer can actually find out from that Soundbank text file itself. Alright, that's it for this video. Good luck, and I'll talk to you later.